I want to share 5 things not to do in customer service that came from an experience that I had last week. One experience, 5 things not to do. I think recognizing what not to do when you are a customer and you are taking notes in your head about what's going on so that you don't do this in your job as a customer service representative or someone who works with clients and customers is a really great reminder. I'm Jen Swanson, your career coach. I help you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. And if this is the first time that we're meeting, hello and welcome. Hit that like button and let's get into the 5 things. I'm going to start with the story. The COVID-19 lockdown rules lifted on June 15th. So on June 16th, Scott and I decided to take off for a 2-night getaway in a community that is a little ways away and takes a ferry to get to, but it doesn't take hours and hours and hours, or at least it shouldn't. And so because it was the day after the restrictions for travel within our province were lifted, we made a reservation on a ferry, which costs money. And the ferry is a good hour drive away from where we live. So off we went, and we left with plenty of time, or so we thought, and then realized we were in the middle of rush hour and accidents that happened. So we made it to the booth where you have to pay to get onto the ferry. And when we got there, we realized we had quite literally missed the boat by 1 vehicle. Which meant that we then had an hour and a half wait, an hour and 45 wait until the next sailing. Which in the grand scheme of things was not the worst thing that could have happened because we were on vacation and there was a nice little village to poke around in. But here's what happened next that made us both look at each other and say, there has to be a video. The person at the toll booth didn't really say too much about, being empathetic or I'm really sorry. She made excuses as to why she let the person ahead of us go and not us. And then instead of being empathetic and saying I'm really sorry, etc., she started telling us all about the fact that she had to get up at 5 in the morning and her whole saga of what happened when she got to work. Well, meanwhile, we are still upset, and this happened immediately that we realized that we were not going to get onto that boat despite the paid reservation and all of the rest of it. So that was number 1. The second thing is she made us sit at the booth without any explanation as to why we couldn't pay for our ticket and drive down to park where we could maybe then get out of our vehicle and go explore the area instead of sitting at the booth with no idea how long she was going to make us sit there. The third thing she did is she closed the window on the ticket booth but did not turn off the microphone. And the fourth thing she did is she proceeded to have a 10-minute conversation with a colleague in another booth that we could hear completely because the microphone was still on, during which she trash-talked a third colleague and dropped the F-bomb repeatedly. And at one point, she was talking about how unprofessional this person she was gossiping about was, which caused me to turn very quietly to Scott and say, isn't that ironic? And the fifth thing is she finally opened the window and she said, well, I'm going to give you this. And she handed a little card to us. And I thought, oh, maybe she's giving us a free coffee in the village or something because we were in convenience store or whatever the case may be. I thought, I was about to think, oh, that's sweet. But instead, what she said was, this is how you can complain if you want to. I give it to all the seniors. So, 5 things that could have been done differently to have made the whole experience professional and to have made the whole experience probably what the organization would have liked it to have been instead of what it was. Number 1, she could have been empathetic to the fact that we just missed it despite having a reservation because of all the massive traffic and everyone trying to get out of town or get to work, and that we were feeling stressed and struggled, and that it had been a difficult experience just getting there, and then discovering that we had missed the boat. The second thing she could have done is explained why and how long we had to sit at the booth instead of being able to pay and proceed down to the parking area. It would have been good to know, rather than just having the window closed and we're just sort of sitting there. The third thing she could have done, if she was going to talk to someone else, talk to one of her colleagues, is shut off the microphone. The fourth thing would have been to not have gossiped about a third employee and talked about all the details of that person's life and how she slept in all the time and didn't do her work, etc., etc. All of those things we as other customers did not need to hear. Unprofessional to begin with to gossip, but even more unprofessional to allow other customers to hear it. And the fifth thing was that she assumed our age and made a comment about that. So to assume that we were of a certain age, and there's nothing wrong, my goodness, with being a senior. I'm 11 years out and then I will be officially collecting that pension. But it just felt offensive on top. It was adding insult to injury, perhaps would be an expression to use. It was like a lot of assumptions coming out of this person. It was just rude. And all of that in one encounter. Now, chances are you don't do any of these things. But what I find when I pay attention to how I'm treated as a client or a customer or a patient is that it is a good reminder for me to know how not to behave when I'm dealing with a client or a customer. It's a good reminder to pay attention to how you are being treated out there in the world, so that you, and good or not good, so that you can say, oh, that was a very lovely thing that person said to me, or oh, that made me feel really important and special, or oh, that made me feel respected, and that I'm getting good service even though things aren't going the way I want them to go, right? The person couldn't control that there'd been traffic and accidents and that we'd not made our reservation. We weren't blaming her. It had nothing to do with her. But her whole demeanor, attitude, response, and then how she proceeded with the interaction was not good. So it's good to learn from people, good or bad, so that you can improve your customer service and be as professional as you can be, and help people through the experiences that they are living through as someone who is in service of others. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and here is the question of the day. What have you experienced that was either fabulous customer service or that was not professional customer service? And how did you feel from either of those experiences? Write that in the chat and let us know so that we can all learn together. And next, I'm going to link to a video on confidence versus arrogance and how to tell the difference. So I'll put that over there, and I will see you in the next video.